and as I return to you, the 3-time World Heavyweight Champion of RPGs. Now, your main man's going to speak today about remythologizing. Now, remythologizing is something that occurs commonly in both fiction and role-playing games. Let's break it down with one example off the bat. That's going to be the kobold. Now, a kobold is really a German spirit. It's kind of a sliding scale. There's a number of different sorts of entities identified with the word kobold in Germanic mythology. However, kobold to most gamers is a little red, orangish, rust-colored rat, dog, dragon thing. Because Dungeons & Dragons took it around with it. Originally, when the kobolds appeared, they're pretty much in every edition of D&D, pretty much right in the very beginning of those monster books. Well, right under K anyway, they're all alphabetical. The kobold is the ultimate omega monster, the whipping boy, the jobber to everyone. And as such, has really gained a lot of sympathy over the years. They're quite playable. People out there, many of them really enjoy kobolds. I've seen a number of kobold player characters over the years, and I think there's a lot of potential to be mined and depth you can do with that. Overall, I think success for the remythologizing there. There are other examples in D&D that I can go over and over and over. I mean, there's loads of monsters that have started out there, Gygaxian design archetype, which maybe even been closer to, or sometimes further away even from the original mythological idea, and they just move further away. Like the kobold maintains some certain traits with the mining and so forth. Like, oh, what is he doing all these things? Well, if we actually look at the mythology, we can start seeing certain aspects of kobolds related to mines and to mischief and so forth, and that's where you bring those parts of the kobold in. A lot of monsters in mythology are kind of the same thing, and how many times, you don't want like 4 flavors of ice cream in a monster manual, you want a lot. So when they take those as base points, and a lot of these things, they have good names, otherwise you just got to start making up kind of weird sci-fi type names. Certainly room to do that as well, to augment and supplement, but when you build around a base that has somewhere you can go and look it up, and in old mythological books or now on Wikipedia or whatever, the people go, oh yeah, okay, there's more I can bring from it, more depth and so forth. And again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think in Dungeons & Dragons, using the word Medusa for Gorgon and the word Gorgon for a large bull doesn't really work very well. I just don't like that one. I haven't seen anyone that thought that was a good idea. Gorgon's a Gorgon, the large bull is something you just rip out of the book, and you send that one back with a digester, an acid-borne shark, and a man $3.95 from Wizards of the Coast. These are just perpetual, perennial, continuous bad ideas. So, looking at the idea of remythologizing, again, let me give another example. Look at Lord Rutherford and Count Dracula from the 1900s, the iconic vampire image of the aristocratic gentleman of the night that has so thoroughly become identified with the image of the vampire. It's absolutely nothing to do with mythology. Those don't exist in mythology. The mythological idea of a vampire is more, well, there's a lot of different mythologies, but most of them come closer to being what a wight is in D&D than a vampire is in D&D or in most games. Vampire the Masquerade, for example. All that spawns from the movie Nosferatu to the books Twilight or even Kissing Coffins. All of it comes right down from that same pipe and not from any sort of predication upon actual mythology. This has been remythologized, and it has created something great. It's created something that has endured and become interesting because you took those seeds and planted them in fertile soil. Of course, again, sometimes it doesn't work well. However, I think the seeds of the ideas, the names that have that hoary mystique to them, or that strange eldritch quality, can really boost up a creature. And when you at least keep a loose tie to the original idea and then augment it with a new idea, I think that a lot of times people kind of get on board with that. I think that in creating an RPG, in creating a role-playing game setting, when you take those ideas, you can really come up with some interesting stuff. You can tweak and change and modify. When you take a troll, you're like, okay, I'm going to use trolls, but my trolls are going to be Norse, for example. The players will be confused because, you'll drop the words troll, boom, 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 make sure they know, because you want them to know. You want them to be thinking one way, right? and then that's when you sucker punch them. Let them think they know what's coming, and then knock them with something else. You know, they get these Norse trolls, some of them like, you know, 1.5 feet tall, some of them with like 2 heads, and, you know, just bizarre different things. And they're trolls, and those are the trolls you're going to roll with. You're not going to use no damn acid trolls that have to take acid or fire. Maybe these trolls are immune to both those things. You're like, oh no, no, actually, we're trolls from Muspelheim, and that doesn't bother us at all. Wow, thank you for the extra hit points. And now I get a bonus to strength. You know, or they start growing. Like, oh no, what a horrible idea. Or, you know, or they start spawning off more trolls, gremlin style. You know, so you can bring those different things, and players, it resonates. But you still have that core idea of troll, right? Because we've interpreted it, we've taken it, we've remythologized it, and run in different directions with it. What about taking your favorite god from mythology? Take, oh man, you know, I really like this particular god over here. I really want to have a little dumbed down version of that god. Now, in certain mythologies, you'll see more or less those sort of ideas in expressed. So, you know, give you kind of good points. But you might want to take a god or a mythological figure that's very powerful and kind of dumb it down to almost player character, or maybe even beneath player character status and power, but you still have that theme, that idea. Maybe you want to even name it after that god, or take part of the god, so you're paying homage there. They can see it traced backwards, some ideas to bring that more fully to life, to be fully formed, to become more interesting. So the remythologizing can be a very interesting aspect in RPGs. It can help shake some of the dust off this old crusty concepts. You know, do we want the elves in our game to be the same as elves in every other game? And it doesn't matter what game you're playing. It doesn't matter, the elves are loads of games. You want to play in a Savage Worlds game, or you want to play in Warhammer, you want to play Palladium, or whatever. You can get the elves. You understand? You get the dwarves. You can change them and tweak them and look back. Right? We're looking back now at the original mythology to remine it for ideas. So they're kobolds. Okay, look at kobolds, right? And they're mined off these ideas of these mind spirits, this trickery. Oh, well, actually, how about these kobolds here who can turn into candles or visible or whatever? And we take that and we build that idea up, and all of a sudden it's a whole different deal. When you have the familiar as a veneer for the mysterious, it can really just be a good double whammy to add to the players. And then you can keep them off balance by also throwing some of the familiar in there. You're like, okay, my kobolds and my orcs and my gnolls and my elves and my dwarves are all so different. You're like, oh, well, what the hell is this troll? But it's really just a straight normal troll. And then they're like, it keeps them really guessing. They're like, oh, well, do we go left or right? Or, you know, and then they start getting more involved in it. It's not that same stagnant thing that they've seen over and over again. It's something new and beautiful and interesting budding, where there's a new concept. Even if you just invest something slightly new, if you just make a tweak, you know, you present somebody with an elf out of a role-playing game, whichever game it is, the elf right out of the thing. Except your culture, you just 180 one aspect, and then we build on how does that change them? How does that impact the other aspects? What does that begin to bring out of this character? How is the role-playing different? What does the society become differently? And you can really build a lot of interest around that. So overall, you know, the ideas of remythologizing, I want to know what you guys think about that. I want to know what you guys think on some of the different monsters that have been remythologized. Give me your thoughts on the vampires, or the kobolds, or the lamia, or whatever you want to talk about in public, if you will.